I came across a video on the internet explaining 5 things that impair mental health at workplace, and I could resonate so much with that video. Yes, we all do job, we have all been there, and even in academia, it's not free from toxicity. The more pristine things look no from outside, the more toxicity is there inside. That's what I have observed. You take medical profession, you take teaching profession, you take any academia, it's somewhat like that. So I have worked for quite few years as assistant professor before taking admission for PhD, and I want to share some of my experiences with you. When I started my first job, what all things that happened and how things were, and how things can really shed light on how you operate and all that. So what are we waiting for? So when I started my first job was a technical one. It's not technically my first job, but it's my first teaching job. The account over here is of my experience as assistant professor in a reputed college in the capital, Panjim. When I joined, everything was quite good. Things looked quite good. I was happy that I got into a good place. Sometimes the start of the career can affect how you perceive or how you see things. Okay. I was getting appreciation for my work. Overall, things were going fine. One day what happened was a meeting was called. Okay, meetings are a norm in any kind of workplace. So a meeting was called. One duty was assigned last minute. So I didn't know, and it required me to work. It's not about work, but it required me to submit it within a day or within half a day, something of that sort. I clearly don't remember what exactly was it, but I had to submit it on a deadline and it was assigned last minute. So that had really got me annoyed and it pissed me off. During the meeting, I suggested one change for this, and I don't know if it hurt. It was the way I said, because I was quite annoyed with that. I clearly don't remember the details. I think it hurt the ego of the hierarchy, and it didn't go well with my seniors. From that day, my trouble started. They started micromanaging, targeting me. Whatever simple things were getting targeted and getting highlighted. They used to speak about me in my presence without taking my name. If somebody speaks in your presence, you know it's for you, but you can't reply. Okay. Now I am in a position where even if somebody tries to do such a thing, that I can reply and give back. But that time, since it was my first job, I didn't know how to work around this thing. Or passive aggression, and this term I learned in therapy. More on that later. Got me so anxious that particular college I had to pass through a junction. So I had to pass through a junction and come to the college. So whenever I used to reach that junction, my heart rate used to go up, and it was so much of nervousness and anxiety, and I just couldn't focus on my work, and it negatively started affecting the way I showed up. Recently I discovered a term called as narcissistic, okay, or narcissist. When I watched that video and saw the kind of symptoms or the traits, it exactly matched my previous boss. To escape all this, whenever I was alone, I started going to the library just to be away from these people. I had worked prior to that, but nothing of this level had happened with me. And if you are somebody who is hypersensitive and emotional, then these things, even somebody tells you ignore this, it doesn't get ignored, and it does affect you, and it affects the way you operate. Put me in a state of self-doubt and invalidation, and it took me a lot of time to come after that. Now I'm in a state where if somebody does even this passive aggression, okay, speaking and side taunts, as I call it, they know who they are dealing with. But that time I didn't know. That time I was quite naive. I didn't know how to maneuver my way through all this office politics. I think people who don't know how to be diplomatic and who are quite straightforward, they get into these things. It did affect me a lot of time. So that was one thing that had happened in one of the workplaces. I worked in several other places. Overall, I've seen this tendency of leaking the boots of your boss. He or she has his favorites and you try to be the favorite and it backfires. I've had in the past some of the colleagues and they had the liberty speaking whatever comes to their mind just because they are seniors. There is this huge problem of invalidation. If somebody says some complaint, then the boss tells that you are the problem. The blame shifts on you, the one who complains. You cannot always go around fighting with it, but there are few things that you can do if it's affecting your mental health and peace of mind. That we'll see. One thing I would like to say is that a job has to be treated like a job. It can never be treated like an entrepreneurial venture. It will never can be treated like a business. It is a job. It is supposed to give you that much of salary and it has to be treated that way. What we do generally is we overestimate and overthink what value we can get out of a job. So this is the underlying thing that we need to take into account. Keep things in perspective. Boundaries and firmness is important. Okay. So all of us have little bit of self-doubt. Okay, that is always there. And when anyone says anything which pokes it little bit, then it gets flared and we cannot take it. The first thing to do is to ground yourself and set clear boundaries. Any behavior that goes outside that, voice it out. What we do is we generally keep quiet and things will go our way. We expect things to go our way and the other person to understand us. और किसी ने आपकी ज़िंदगी का ठेका नहीं लेके रखा है. You have to understand yourself and you have to stand up for yourself. Whatever other person says, you should be in a position to defend yourself. This is the technique that bosses use. If you complained, you are the problem. If you complained, they will start invalidating you. This happens everywhere. This everyone has faced and I have faced it myself, and that is the reason I am telling you it's an administrative tactic and it will work only as long as you don't stand up for yourself. Now, how do you stand up for yourself? Whether it is a meeting or anything, you can voice out your concern. So this is one thing to start with. If you keeping quiet, then your silence, we feel that सामने वाले को दया आएगी, but it doesn't work that way. Don't shy away from having a conversation. Nobody owes you anything. You are here on merit. You don't owe anything to anyone. If things go out of hand, one thing you can do is complain to the hierarchy. And this is what changing the language comes into play. And when I say changing the language, say suppose let's take an example of school kids. Okay. One person is trying to physically be a bully. Other person who is there, he is getting intimidated or because of whatever stress and all, and he is not able to give it back. Now the bully has control over his language, that is of physical assault or physical this. If the other person also tries to do that, he may be able to do, but since he is not able to do, that is the reason he is getting bullied in the first place. Okay, so you change your direction. You change your language. If you are facing any kind of passive aggression at work, one thing is you can voice it out in the meeting. If you are not a confrontational person, then you can tell this in person to the hierarchy or whoever is concerned, or you can give a written complaint. Out of all these three, what you will do depends on the kind of circumstances, the severity of the problem and your nature. When these kinds of office politics go on, the one thing that comes to the surface is invalidation. Whatever you have achieved, whatever you have done, it's kind of invalidated and it is not taken into account. Such thing is happening, then it should be in your head that whatever achievements you have done are important to you. They should not matter to anyone. These are some of the things that you can do if someone is speaking in your presence about you without taking your name, those sly comments, side tones, then you can interfere in the conversation and you can ask a question very naively. Okay, so what do you mean by this? The major pressure comes from thinking that you will have to fight with that person. Okay, if you are not a confrontational person, the moment they are aware that you are giving it back, okay, firmly, but you are giving it back naively but firmly, then automatically the level of these things will come down. I'm sure you must have done job at some or the other place. I'm sure you have done job at some or the other place, at whichever level. We all have. And if anything of this sort has happened with you, I would like to share it in the comment section to see how you have dealt with it, so other readers can benefit from it. And I'll leave you with that till the next video.